large bag of instant noodles fell onto the altar, and the royal granary was already full. Upon hearing this good news, the empress was overjoyed, thinking that with these foods, the people would be able to survive the winter. But unexpectedly, the enemy army suddenly attacked. The empress personally led the troops on the city wall to command the battle, but the enemy had already cut off reinforcements and supplies. If they didn't retreat soon, they might die there. As a former general, the young man knew well that the enemy's weapons were advanced, so he immediately went out to purchase equipment to help the empress. Seeing that the enemy army was about to break into the city, he pulled out a flamethrower and aimed it at the enemy soldiers in the sand table. Soon, the enemy soldiers were too scared to continue attacking the city. Then he threw fireworks and firecrackers at the enemy army, and the battlefield instantly became chaotic. The enemy commander thought it was the empress using sorcery, and immediately ordered a retreat. Little did they know, it was all the young man helping from behind the scenes. The empress, learning that heavenly fire had repelled the enemy, speculated that it was the general's soul in the heavens helping them, so she led the ministers to honor the general's memory. She had just placed the general's battle uniform onto the altar, when the young man suddenly sneezed, and a gust of wind blew his helmet into the copper cauldron. The helmet was instantly transported to his rental apartment 2,000 years later. Looking at the helmet, the young man remembered the scenes of him fighting in battle, so he put on the helmet that rightfully belonged to him again. On the other side, the empress noticed the helmet had disappeared, and believed that the general's spirit had accepted the offerings. She immediately placed gold, silver, jewelry, and other treasures into the copper cauldron. Soon, all these items were transported to the young man's home. Suddenly, the enemy army attacked again, and assassins had infiltrated the city, planning to assassinate the empress. The young man was very worried when he discovered this, and picked up a wooden stick, a kitchen knife, and a chainsaw to help. But these items were too powerful, and could hurt the empress and the people in the sand table. Seeing the empress in danger, the young man was so anxious he didn't know what to do. In a moment of panic, he stepped on the wooden stick on the floor and fell into the sand table. The empress looked up, and saw that her most trusted general had returned. The empress was shocked to discover that the general, who had died a year ago, suddenly descended from the sky. She was overjoyed, thinking that the general had returned. However, as the clouds dispersed, the general disappeared again. In truth, after the general's death, he had traveled to the modern world, 2,000 years into the future. Just a minute ago, he had seen the empress being attacked by assassins, and in his rush to rescue her, he accidentally stepped on a wooden stick on the ground. Half of his body fell into a sand table that could teleport objects. When he was bounced back, he realized that the sand table could only teleport objects, not people. He had no choice but to secretly protect the empress. Because the assassination attempt on the empress failed, the enemy commander believed the general was protecting her from above, so he ordered a sorcerer to cast a spell to destroy the general's soul. Seeing this, the young man poured instant noodles into the sand table. The sorcerer, in the midst of casting the spell, was instantly scalded to death. Upon witnessing this, the enemy commander ordered the army to retreat. The empress was overjoyed upon hearing this news, suspecting that the general was protecting her from the heavens. Unbeknownst to her, the young man was outside with a magnifying glass, spying on her while she was bathing. When she finished dressing and came out, the marquis's son had already surrounded the entire city with his soldiers, intending to force the empress to abdicate. The young man, seeing the empress in danger through the sand table, immediately threw out a loudspeaker, and warned them to lay down their weapons and surrender, or they would be struck by lightning. The soldiers, believing the general had become a deity after his death, had witnessed his powers the day before, but the marquis's son didn't believe it, thinking it was just a trick by the empress. The next second, he was electrocuted to death by the young man. At this moment, the empress was certain that the general had always been watching over them. She then returned to the palace with her subordinates to deal with the rebellious marquis. The young man also decided to continue helping the empress. Suddenly, there was a knock on the door of his rented room. He hurriedly covered the sand table with cloth. When he opened the door, he found the landlady standing outside, because the young man was always mysterious in the house, living on instant noodles but somehow able to pay the rent with a gold bar. The landlady suspected that he had a treasure chest hidden in his room, so she wore a sexy nightgown to try and seduce him. As a righteous ancient general, the young man wasn't tempted, and he immediately closed the door to spy on what treasures were inside. The landlady decided to play cosplay the next night, dressing in the empress's attire, striking seductive poses to try and lure the young man. The young man would never allow anyone to disrespect the empress, so he immediately chased after the landlady, demanding she take off the clothes. Little did he know, he had fallen into her trap, as the landlady had already arranged for her brother to hide in the shadows. After the young man left, her brother sneaked into the room, and uncovered the cloth covering the sand table.